Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I guess we just wait for 1 more minute, I guess. Then we can start. Is that okay with everybody? Sorry, thank you, Carsten. So Melissa upload. Okay, Melissa is here. Okay, we're good. So I think we're ready to start. So first of all, thank you for making the time for this interim meeting. Carsten, are you willing to be the note taker?
I'm going to be distracted a bit by other things, so I think it would be good if other people also would join.
Take the minutes.
Yes.
Thank you, Marco. Hi, Danielle. So I'm going to share my screen. So the agenda for today, update from AD. I don't see any other ADs in our session. Skip that. The first would be the revoke token notification.
Yes, hi. Just to mention, we got end of last week the Shepherd's review and comments from Göran. They got addressed, and version 6 was submitted. And right after, or almost right after, I guess Daniel requested publication. So thanks for putting that in the fast track. It's done.
Okay. The next is PubSub profile. Yes,
I did upload slides for that, so if you could.
Yes, I will. I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, we can start with from the second slide directly. And the version is still the same. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, that's perfect if everyone can see it. So we had a design meeting with Marco about outstanding issues that was presented in the IETF meeting. And what we wanted to reiterate is the new message flow, which includes the KDC discovery as well. So here we assumed that the client can do an unauthorized request to the broker, it can discover topics, etc., and with the ACE transport used, would get the AS information, then approach the AS to talk to broker regarding connecting to the broker to figure out further the KDC associated with the topics that it wants to communicate to. And after that discovery KDC step, the second step would be to, again, approaching the AS to be able to talk to the KDC, and then finally talking to the KDC to join a security group linked to the topics that it wants to communicate. So that's one thing. The flow is actually have several steps of approaching the broker and the AS. The second thing that needs to be added is that we were a bit too strict about the topic one-to-one matching the security group associated with the topic using the same names. We thought during the KDC discovery, the name of the security group associated with the topic can also be discovered. So that kind of provides a little bit more flexibility in terms of naming topics and naming security groups, and that association can be discovered through the during the KDC discovery as well. This kind of a substantial change is that previously the draft was written in a way that allowed unauthorized subscribers. This was because I think previously people thought when the subscribers joined, the conversation, by associating to the broker, what they would get for that topic would be encrypted communications. And since they are not part of a security group, they would not be able to decrypt that information. So they don't need to go additional steps of authorizing themselves to the broker. We thought this is not a good idea. So we basically suggested that no authorized subscribers or no authorized publishers, to be able to discover the KDC and an associated security group, you need to be authorized, as well as you need to be authorized to be able to join the conversation linked to that topic. So those are the two changes. Next slide, please. So I described the scope was still not complete in the IETF meeting. First of all, we started the scope with roles of publishers and subscribers, but then thinking actually what we are adding to the scope in terms of publishing, reading, and deleting, what we're adding is really permissions. And there are permission details that are described in the scope. So we thought renaming that would be better in terms of really describing what the scope is about. And then previously in the IETF meeting, we suggested adding an admin permission. This was not for this profile, because this profile describes normal clients, not admin clients, but it was just to be future looking in case we have another profile describing admin related operations for PubSub. In addition to that, we've talked about signaling what the scope is about, whether it is an application group or a security group. We thought this would be especially important when the same entity assumes multiple roles, like KDC and the broker are the same, and they have to still ask the AS for an so the client needs to still ask for a token for the same entity, and the audience will not necessarily differentiate for which role they are talking to that entity. So we thought the type of the group the scope is associated with would be a good indicator to add into the scope. Okay, so that's the scope change. Previously, we thought, we should have a specific naming and etc., but we decided just having a flag identifying the group type would be the best to add to the scope now. And last slide. So plan for the IETF cutoff is the implementation of these changes, plus some editorial changes, clarifying the KDC discovery, finalizing scope. If there are any points to be raised in this meeting, we would take them into account. So please let me know your comments in the previous 2 slides. In addition to that, we would need to be more clear about our join response as well. Which should we previously it was describing just a COSA key being returned, but we need to include the signature algorithm and related parameters to the join response as well. Described as point to point. We were thinking of describing or thinking whether it's worth to add another group rekeying scheme. And then there are additional operations supported at the KDC regarding policies and etc. So these will be done later after the cutoff. And that's my update for the PubSub.
Sigden, Göran here.
Okay. So, okay, I see you have questions.
Yes.
Well, yeah, just
Hi,
curious about. Hi. I was just curious about what you said about distinguishing application group or security group on the previous slide. I didn't understand how that was done. Could you please repeat that?
Yes. So if you go to slide 2, it was just going to be a bit identifier that would say, so especially if the topic is the same as the security group name, right? Slide 3 then, slide 2 or 3, where is the scope described? So when we are approaching the authorization server, the client approaches the authorization server twice. Once to get a token for the KDC, once to get to the token for the broker. And typically what we describe in the profile is that the topic name was the same with the security group, and then the audience differentiates what this token is for and who is this token is for. So Marco raised the issue of what happens when the KDC and the broker are the same entity. So when you approach the authorization server, yes, the audience has the correct ID, but then you would want to flag what this token is for to the authorization server so that they could check the correct policies around
Right.
whether this is permissible or not. So that's it.
But and which bit is that? Is that the?
So it's the red. So we are proposing changing PubSub roles as PubSub perm details, and then we have an admin bit, and after that a group type, and then publish read delete.
Sorry, group type. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we are
Thank you.
aiming to flag, basically, just to say this is a scope related to the group. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, for new questions, I see that Pearl is here. So Pearl, one of the first items on the agenda was any update from AD. Is there anything you would have for us?
Sorry, can you repeat that? The audio was really bad on that. Sorry.
What I say is the first item on the agenda for us was the update from AD, from you.
Okay. So right. So today the AD reviews for the lake documents for ad hoc go out, and then next on my list is doing all the group, the OSCOR group documents. So those should hopefully be going on to the IEC ballot in like 2 weeks. For the IETF last call in 2 weeks. So that's the only update I have. Are you expecting any update from something else, or?
No, that was just that's fine for us. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay.
Okay. On the agenda is WESCO GM admin.
Right. I also uploaded some slides. Can I show them by myself? Well, I'll try.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is an update on the GM-admin document. And as agreed in the past few meetings and interim meetings, we have now completed the document split, essentially taken out the Coral content. So the current document, say Doc 1, is soon to be just GM-admin 9, continuing on the same usual track. You can track the changes on the editor's copy on the GitHub. And again, most of the change was extracting away the content related to the use of Coral while keeping the main interface, protocol, and its use with CBOR and link format. Yeah, we also noted some remnant from last year, if not older, about how the group managers should consider the pairwise mode to be by default if nothing is said by the administrator, and that has been false for a long while. Again, probably a remnant from the times where the pairwise mode was just introduced and kind of treated as a Class B citizen. So we think it's just more appropriate to have it through, but it's a simple change. And then we took the opportunity also to clarify better what happens when group members learn of group configuration change, just expanding on the content we had already. And of course, a number of editorial improvements. But then in parallel, side by side with the extraction, we also set up the soon-to-be GM-admin Coral 00. It's now completed and stable in the editor's copy in a dedicated GitHub repo.
Questions for Moko? Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Moko, I'm not sure I'm hearing you. Issue with your mic. Now I think yes. Now
oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, in the core working group, we are processing the Shepherd review of the group OSCOR document. And when working on that, we noted 2 open points for this GM-admin document here to be addressed accordingly. More details in the next slide, but one is an actual clarification in the protocol, and one is more a matter of consistency fix in terms of terminology to remain consistent with group OSCOR. So on the first open point, this was around all along actually, but again, we've just noticed considering work happening in the co-working group. The administrator is in general able to change the current configuration of a group at runtime. And it may sound a bit reckless, but the administrator may in principle change the encryption algorithms used in the group. Well, we are already discussing some side effects for the group members, but one side effect we didn't consider is the case where this change results also in changing the maximum size of the OSCORE sender IDs used in the group, especially if the new size becomes smaller than the size of the sender ID of some of the current group members. So those group members would practically have an identifier that is not consistent and usable in the group anymore at that point. So just in the interest of avoid something very complicated or to shut down the group altogether, which would be also an overreaction, if there's no objection, our proposal would be, in this particular corner case, for the group manager to evict from the group, specifically those group members that now have basically an inconsistent too large sender ID. We don't need to explain how that particular step happens. It's taken care of in a separate document, but sorry, my connection is bad today. I was saying the Rekim process itself is already taken care of in another document, but I think in this document we should at least say that this direction is taken in this corner case. And it's nice that we can say that once and for all in one particular section, discussing this configuration overwriting with a put handler. We don't need to re-explain in another section that just inherits this side effects silently. We don't need to re-explain it again in the admin Coral document I mentioned above that inherits this silently as well. So if there's no smart alternative or objection against this, our proposal would be to explain this way forward in section 662. I heard none and not in the chat, so we will implement this. Logan?
Yes, so I was asking participants, so no question on this, on that open point from others.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the second one is easier. It's really about terminology and naming for the sake of consistency with Group OSCORE. It's about changing the name of an algorithm and the name of a parameter reflecting another algorithm that has to be fixed accordingly, also in the Coral document, especially in the examples. At the same time, when we do this, I think it's worth adding an editor's note to mention that this new updated terminology would be aligned with the soon to come version of Group OSCORE that we plan to submit in the next few weeks. But instead, the document KeyGroupCom OSCORE referred by this one right now is kind of frozen in the interest of the AD review. And well, there's going to be for some time a bit of mismatch on these particular terms, but probably the best thing we can do at the moment, also to not confuse Paul, is adding this editor's note here. And the plan was for when we process the AD review to also align KeyGroupCom OSCORE fully with that terminology. Yeah, this should be non-controversial. Okay, so next steps, just to keep this in lockstep, also in the interest of the terminology synchronization. In the next few weeks, we plan a resubmission of the Group OSCORE document in core. Something more will be left there, but it shouldn't really affect what happens in this document instead. Then we finalize gmadmin to be version 9 according to the previous slides. We'll submit it as version 9, and we follow up right away with version 0 of the Coral document. And when we get there, we should definitely have the gmadmin version 9 ready to consider for a working group last call. Thank you.
There's just one comment from Goran Moko on slide 5. If you check the comment, he said, "You mean after the AD review?"
After the AD review, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks. By the way, I proposed an additional little set of slides on KeyGroupCom and KeyGroupCom OSCOR. No need to go through them. I just cared about having them archived for the meeting material. But long story short, also related to the terminology issues I mentioned above, I'm just going to open some issues on the GitHub for both KeyGroupCom and KeyGroupCom OSCOR, especially on the terminology alignment. Again, to not revise the drafts right now and to wait for doing that after the AD review. So it's good if you can also approve those slides to be added to the meeting material, but it was just about listing some GitHub issues we were planning to open, just to not forget about those.
So any other comments before we proceed to Melissa's slides?
Thank you then.
Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Militia. So yeah, I'm here to present the latest update on the EST OSCOR draft. We published revision 01 during the past weekend. This revision resolves all the comments and issues that Marco raised in his review. Once again, I would like to thank Marco for his review, and the goal of today's presentation is to discuss one of the open points that was raised by Michael during the discussion on the pull requests in the repository, and also to present the resolutions to the issues from the last interim. So I will first, in the interest of time, I will first go with the open issue, and then at the end present the resolutions to the issues from the last meeting. So the open issue that was raised by Michael is on server-generated private keys. And I will read here the comment that Michael posted in GitHub, and where he's arguing essentially to remove the server-generated private keys completely from EST OSCOR. And he's saying that the reason that 9148 had it was because of very specific situations where RSA 1024-bit IDEV key was to be replaced with an RSA 248 key, and it was known that the random number generator in the client machines was poor, etc. And essentially he's arguing that I think that any 10-year-old silicon has good enough RNG support that it's not an issue. So this was the comment posted by Michael that raised some research on my side and on the side of the co-authors. So essentially, there was a post, a private post, an exchange with Shahid Raza from SIX, who is a co-author of EST OSCOR, who is also arguing the contrary, and he posted as his argument in response to his argument a video of a talk on random number generation issues in the IoT space, where essentially the conclusion is that the hardware random number generator is not enough for secure random number generation, mostly, and the case is that some of these are not properly implemented, such that the hardware is not in the best shape. But also some vendors use bare metal programming without an operating system, and therefore do not include a cryptographically secure random number generator. So in my opinion, server generated private keys kind of work around this issue. But I think this is a larger issue to be discussed, and I'm sure you guys will have some more input on this. So I'm opening this for discussion. Whether the main question is whether EST OSCOR should follow RFC 9148 and support server generated keys, or rule them out altogether. Do we have any comments on this? So there is Joran.
Yeah, I don't have, I mean, I hear two opinions here, and I don't have much to add, really. I think it would be great if we could avoid server-generated keys, but unless we are convinced that that's always a bad option, then I think we should keep it in and maybe have large caveats about when they are needed and when they are desirable. Michael says something here in his chat. Maybe you want to read that.
Michael says he's a nosy place, so he's not getting everything, but he says he doesn't buy without an OS point. He says if they code bare metal, then they need to code bare metal secure RNG, or they will have lots of problems. He says that he hasn't watched this YouTube video, and then he says other people we're working with who want server-generated keys, let them speed up. He says I don't object, but he questions the need.
Okay, so I'm not arguing that it's good to have server-generated keys with. So Paul, okay, so Paul is saying I would be okay with a big fat warning that it should not be done unless absolutely no other way possible. So yeah, I think this was my proposed way forward instance, and I think it seconds what Joran said about having a big security consideration section on server generated private keys. So I think also if we will be compatible with RFC 9148 if we keep the option with it. So I would propose this way forward then, and it seems to be okay with Paul and Joran. So are there any other opinions?
Heinz, or Hannes, I think it's pronounced. I don't see Hannes in the participant list.
I think Michael's making a joke that he needs Hannes to back him up with his claims.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe to respond to Michael's comment about bare metal, then they need to code bare metal secure RNG, or they will have lots of problems. So this is true, This is true. I do not support. I mean, I'm just stating the fact that some vendors are using bare metal programming approaches. But yeah, if we want to secure RNG, then the best way forward, as it is outlined in this talk, is to have multiple sources of entropy and not a single source of entropy, and that this needs to be implemented properly. So it's more the matter of what is the state of practice today and whether we should still allow, to be on the safe side, allow an option. So I think allowing an option with a warning is fine, with the good consideration explained in the draft. So I would propose that way forward then.
Yes, Kosten, I think, has a would like to speak up.
Yeah. So first of all, of course, it's a sorry state that we are even considering this, but on the other hand, the reality maybe hasn't gone away. Of course, if you're always thinking in terms of the newest processor types, that may not be a problem anymore, but I think in reality it still is. One question that I have that maybe is unrelated to resolving this issue. Do we have ways for the server to actually contribute to entropy?
So that is a good question. I don't have a response immediately to that.
Yeah, maybe just a point for thinking about it, and
Yeah.
maybe this doesn't fit into this document, which essentially tries to be an implementation of an existing protocol, but maybe it's something to think about for resolving this problem in a slightly less unsavory way.
Mhm. So I'm making a little digression for, yes, so Joran is stating something for things to things research group perhaps, but I would just maybe to make a little digression, Karsten, to what you said, that even the new processors have good support. I was surprised when I actually followed this talk that some very prominent examples, I won't name the vendors now, but some very prominent new processors that have hardware support for RNGs have been shown to have very vulnerable implementations of them. And they're quite recent. So the issue is really there. So it's, but it's, again, it's a larger issue. I mean, without random number generator, we won't get very, very far with other protocols that we are standardizing in this space either. So it's an issue that needs to be solved in the implementation at least. So so I believe in terms of this that there is no that we have somewhat consensus on keeping the option open and leaving the big fat warning, as Paul said, in the security consideration section on the pitfalls of doing this. Okay, if there are no further comments, I propose we proceed.
Let's proceed, please.
Okay, thanks. So I will now go through the resolved issues from the last meeting. They kept the same ordering from the last interim when we discussed them. And I'm including just a snapshot of the pull request that was introduced in the repository on each specific issue. So this should be non-controversial. It's just the implementation of what we discussed in the previous meeting. So this issue is to explicit the message flow. So where we are forcing the ad hoc client to play the role of the EST client, and ad hoc initiator to play the role of the EST client, and the ad hoc responder to play the role of the EST server. So this pull request did that. Are there any comments on this? And yes, in the process of doing this, I found out some normative keywords that were used unnecessarily, essentially what Carsten called restatement anti-pattern, if I recall correctly. So this is lowercasing these keywords on essentially that are coming from the requirements of ad hoc. So logical consequences of implementing ad hoc for mutual authentication. If there are no comments on this, I will proceed. So the next issue that was resolved was channel binding when ad hoc is not used. So this was a comment by Marco that he was also that he outlined essentially that the channel binding that we are doing is very specific to the case when ad hoc is used. So we just made the PR that to clarify this, that the channel binding that is optional in the draft is used when ad hoc is executed prior to enrollment. And then when OSCORE is used directly with pre-shared contexts, we are not doing channel binding. So this is non-controversial. This was a comment by Marco, where he was essentially questioning why we were not transporting PKCS objects in EAD ad hoc items. And the reason for this was because we are considering re-enrollment where use of ad hoc is not necessarily used. So we added an informative statement that EAD items are not used because of ad hoc is not necessarily used in the case of re-enrollment. So the next comment by Marco that we resolved was to mandate the OSC attribute in links to EST resources. The comment was that in OSCORE RFC 8613, the OSC attribute is optionally included, but here in our configuration where we can also use DTLS, where we can combine the use of OSCORE and DTLS, this attribute is indeed required in order to signal to the clients that the resources, that this is an EST server using EST COAP-S, that it's using EST OSCORE and not EST COAP-S. The next issue is related to server-generated keys, where the response to SKC endpoint may be an unencrypted PKCS object. So essentially, RFC 9148 leaves the option, as we later examined, leaves the option of having both unencrypted and encrypted object as a response to SKC request. What we did here, and this essentially depends on whether the client included in the certificate signing in the CSR included the SMIME capabilities, which signals whether the response should be encrypted or not. So when making the CSR to SKC and SKG, we mandated that the EST client must not include SMIME capabilities, and as a consequence of that, the private key part of the response to SKC or SKG is an unencrypted PKCS8 object. So this is essentially implementing what we discussed during the last meeting. Then we worked on the content format identifiers, where Marco brought up that it would be good to, just like in RFC 9148, include a summary of what is supported, and we added an explicit statement on the content format support. This is the green stuff here in the middle. And we also added a table on the summary of the response content format identifiers for SKC and SKG server-generated keys, which are now unencrypted PKCS8 objects. Then during the last meeting, we discussed restatement anti-pattern in message binding section. This was brought up by Karsten, and the action was to avoid this pattern by informative text. So essentially what we did is we made the text informative by preceding it with note that, and it is therefore required that the implementation supports implements given options from the references. And later we specify exactly in slide 16, we specify exactly what must be implemented and what may be implemented in terms of block 1 and block 2. So this is on block 1 and block 2, where we follow somewhat follow RFC 9148. Essentially, right now, what we specify is that the servers must implement both block 1 and block 2, and that OSCOR clients must implement block 2 and may implement block 1, which is used in the request. So essentially, it's up to them whether they want to fragment using block 1 in the requests. So I will go back one slide because I
just have a quick editorial comment.
Yes.
When you have a passive construction like on the new version of line 332, it's not clear who is recommending that, and maybe you should just say that.
So okay, you are referring to it is recommended to prevent the IP fragmentation. Yes. Okay, so this was the old text. Okay.
If that is a restatement of something else, why not just say who originally said that?
Okay, I would. Okay, I see. So yeah. Okay, I'll take. I'll take an action item to explore this further and to editorially change the text on the recommendation on IP fragmentation. Finally, there is number 17. Issue number 17 was based on a comment on the secure association between EST client and COAP-to-HTTP proxy, where Marco stated that this may alternatively and more conveniently rely on OSCOR. So we agreed in the previous meeting to informatively reference this draft as a way to establish a secure association between the EST client and COAP-to-HTTP proxy. So yes, the first two changes is just the sentence being brought to a new line, and then the new sentences reads, if a secure association is needed between the EST client and the COAP-to-HTTP proxy, this may also rely on OSCOR, referencing Marco's draft. So I think I skipped one. I will go, yes, just a non-controversial, specify translation number 15. Specify translation scheme if DTLS is additionally used. Essentially, we were missing, we were being specific that EST URLs based on HTTPS are translated to COAP when OSCOR is used, but in case DTLS is additionally used, the translation target is the scheme COAP-S. So this was just a clarification in the draft. So that would be the last resolution of the items from the previous meeting. With that, we have action items to essentially expand on the security consideration section, especially now with regards to server-generated keys and also some other aspects in the draft report related to channel binding using EDHOC and the triple shake attack that RFC 9148 counters. So we will be expanding on that before and publishing a new version before the cutoff for the next IETF. And we hope to receive new reviews that would help us progress this specification further. Are there any questions to what I presented?
Any other questions? So thank you, Melissa. So if there are no other questions, we'll proceed to the next one, which is EDHOC OS core profile.
So this is Göran. There is no.
Göran, I'm not sure I'm hearing you.
You can't hear me? Can't hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. There is no. We are working on it. There is no update for this meeting on the EDHOC profile. So we'll get back on that probably at the IETF meeting in San Francisco, because there is some vacation time now between now and the cutoff. Sorry, between now and the next interim meeting. So that there will probably not be not much progress, so we can that we can present.
Thank you, Göran. So if there are no other questions, I think we're done for this meeting. So again, thank you, everyone. And see you at... Oh, wait. Göran, you have something to say?
No, I just want to say bye.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.